You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of a short story through to line edits of a full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you're now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you. So glad you can join us this week, whether you're listening to us at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, whether you're listening to us on one of our many rebroadcast outlets on AM radio, FM radio, internet radio, however it may be, or if you're taking us along with you as a podcast, thanks for joining us. We're glad to be on the ride with you through what has become very tumultuous times now in our nation and in the world. We got a great show for you this week. We have Roger Stone, a man that I think we can legitimately call a political legend. At the very least, you can call him an iconoclast, a man who has kind of shaped the times that he has been in, has shaped politics as we know it. You would not have heard the phrase opposition research without thinking of Roger Stone. There are many, many topics we covered in our interview, conducted by me and by a fellow attorney, friend, and employer recently. His name is Gerald Gross. You'll be hearing some questions from him, some very insightful questions. We're going to be talking about Syria, we're going to be talking about North Korea, and we're going to be talking about Russia especially, and the relationship that Congress alleges he has, and what's the status of him testifying. It's a great interview, nice long interview. Roger was very generous with his time. You'll hear that coming up in a few minutes. But first, let's get down to it. The world, shockingly, is a dangerous place. I mean, we've been saying this for years, folks, on this show. Myself and Russ Gallo, who has been around the world and has seen evil in the face, especially in the Middle East. This is, in part, the evil that we've all known about, we've all talked about, but it's also a product of the Obama administration's covering up and glossing over world events and ceding responsibility where America has traditionally had a role. When we talk about Syria, and listen, I don't need to recap for you what's happened in Syria. I don't need to recap for you the chemical weapons that were used, according to intelligence sources, by the Assad regime, which has the backing of the Russian government. We don't need to talk about the tragic deaths and the videos and photos of horrific events in Syria, photos of dead children who are gassed, families torn apart. I think we all know we all know the premise. We may not necessarily know what's going on. I know that there are many theories out there about who did what and when and all this other nonsense. And we don't even have to go into the proportional response that President Trump, who did a very quick 180, I might add, when it came to Syria. The proportional response by our military in sending in Tomahawk missiles into the region. I don't need to recap all that with you. What we're here to talk about tonight is where do we go from here? Because clearly this is not where we intended to be when it came to Syria. This is a change of policy that many did not see coming but for this horrific attack. And I got to give credit to the Trump administration and to President Trump for being decisive, for acting in a measured way, and for doing it really in a way that I would think a President Reagan or a President Bush would do. It was a response that didn't go off in a crazy way that many people thought Donald Trump would go off in. It was an attack on an air base where intelligence says that the chemical weapons were being stored. They let Russia know well in advance of when the attack was going to happen so that Russian forces would not be involved or affected. And they did it at a time when there would be the least amount of civilian losses possible. Obviously, his military advisors were very aware of the optics of such an attack. So diplomatically, State Department and Defense Department, kudos to them for handling this the right way, in my opinion. And now we're living in the quote-unquote fallout of this attack on Syria and the Syrian attack on their people. Obviously, it's a destabilizing agent in the arena now in the Middle East. The United States is announcing their presence with authority again, which is something that so many people have been craving for and yearning for, getting tired of the secrecy of the drone attack or the ceding of responsibility to other actors like Russia in the area. But now where do we go? Because there's going to be some tense moments. And diplomatically speaking, I also have to give credit to our UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, for being strong as well in the international arena. Many of you may have seen the meme of her memo when Bolivia wanted to have some sort of private security council conference, and Nikki Haley, who at the time, the United States has been chairing it this month at the Security Council, said, no, we're not going to do that. Even if it was just a meme, folks, she's got guts. She's got huevos, man. You have to see the way that she stares down Russian ambassadors in the UN. The U.S. has really announced their presence with authority again, and that's wonderful to see. Hopefully, the playing field has not changed so much that the United States' reemergence in world affairs will not have so much of a negative blowback towards our men and women in uniform. I don't want to see World War III. I don't want to see Russia fighting with us. I don't want to see China going to North Korea's aid because their sphere of influence is now being affected by Trump's message that he really is sending to them as well by his actions in Syria. I don't want to see World War III occur when we see a battle group steaming towards Asia. But I want people to realize that, the boss is back and that their actions better be measured by their knowledge of the boss being back. I am interested to see what happens, and I pray that no more bloodshed happens to any civilians in Syria as a result of this, or our men and women in uniform. But let this be a lesson to everybody from the 8-year slumber that we had with the Obama administration. There is such a thing as evil in the world. By the way, remember those chemical weapons that John Kerry said didn't exist in Syria? The same ones that were used in Syria recently? Yeah. Let's wake up from our slumber, folks. Obama administration got a lot wrong internationally. They called ISIS the JV team, and then the attacks in France happened. Europe has been ravaged by attacks by refugees in their country and those masking themselves as refugees and then acting as terrorists. I mean, Sweden was said to be safe, and then just recently we had another attack in Sweden. World is an evil, evil place outside of the United States in many places. That's something that wasn't recognized. That was kind of fundamentally rejected by the Obama administration. The Obama administration wanted you to think that everything was under control. We know who's who and what's what. We don't have to be the world's policeman. And while I understand we don't need to be the world's policeman, I do think that America needs to be a check on evil around the world. And by evil, I don't just mean terrorists. I mean nations that treat their people atrociously, nations that certainly nations that use chemical weapons on their own people, and nations that sponsor and support bad actors internationally, all need to be kept in check. It's a check and a balance on the world. We don't need to be the world's police officer. We need to be the check on evil, because nobody else can do it, folks. Look at the size of the forces that are mounting on the other side of the ledger. If you want to consider Russia as evil, look at the size of their military. If you want to consider China as evil, look at the size of their military. And we consider them, quote-unquote, evil because they help evildoers. We see Iran emboldened in Syria because of Russian support for both. We see North Korea emboldened to act because they know that China is the one that's going to try to tamper them down, not the United States. And if the United States gets involved, China will step in because of ego and their sphere of influence. China doesn't like North Korea, but they have to tolerate them because that's their region. They are the Central Kingdom. They control that region in their minds. That's why they claim so many miles offshore. That's why they claim certain areas as their own, like Nepal, like Taiwan, like Hong Kong, and we gave them Hong Kong. You have to understand, geopolitically speaking, there is so many moving parts going on in Syria alone, between all the many actors there, between the Assad government, the rebels, the Russian influence, the Iranian influence, and the American influence. That is a flashpoint and a half that we really have to see what's going to happen. Now, I am glad and encouraged that Secretary of State Tillerson is in Moscow currently meeting with Russian diplomats. I am encouraged that the lines of communication are open since our Tomahawk missile assault on this airbase, our proportional and measured response. And I'm eager to see what comes out of this. It's going to be a tough time, folks, and it's going to be a tense time for many, many months to come and possibly more than a year to come. And a lot of that is due because America is reemerging onto the international stage as a power. We're going to see military buildups. We're going to see active duty call-ups, and our men and women and our family members are going to have to be, deployed overseas in different places. We're going to see escalation, and we're going to see some saber rattling on all sides. And the reason why we have all this saber rattling and posturing and reassessment of positions in the world is because the reemergence of America on the world stage and the rollback of the Obama doctrine of leading from behind. There's more questions right now than answers, folks, and I'm eager to see how it plays out. I just pray it doesn't play itself out in extended armed conflict or declarations of war or whatever it may be. Our focus should always be on growing our economy, jobs, international relations for American goods and services to expand and to grow overseas, and America reaping the benefits of it. And we need our international partners and the interaction thereof to be able to accomplish many of those things. But I don't want to see bloodshed any more than we have. And while I understand the need for it in certain cases, let's all pray it doesn't go further than what we've seen, especially for those of us who are personally affected by these things. That being said, we need to make sure that these areas are stabilized. In order to stop the flow of refugees, we want to make sure that homelands of people who are able to leave their countries can go back there. But we also want to make sure that those who can't, the poorest of the poor in these countries, remain safe. There's so many moving parts here that it will take more than one show to really assess. But the message to take out of this situation is this, in my opinion. America's back, folks. And it's time to start reckoning with evil on our terms. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we got Roger Stone on the show. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that we've been talking about now, and as well as the continuing farce of an investigation of Russian influence on our elections. Hey, by the way, anybody else think that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are still on the same page? Yeah, right. And we'll be talking about more things with Roger Stone, including his new book, and a Netflix documentary coming out called Get Me Roger Stone that he was a part of. We'll talk about all that and more. Gene Baradelli, Behind Enemy Lines, will be back right after these brief words.
If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org, brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines Radio is all about being right. No, seriously, it is. If you ever listen to Russ Gallo or me go back and forth on some issue, we always want to make sure that we remember who said what and when we said it. That's why we go to GoOnRecord.com. It's a brand new social media website. Challenge people on what they believe, whether it's in politics, sports, entertainment, finance, whatever. There's a category for you at GoOnRecord.com. Check it out right now. Tell us, what do you stand for? It's time for you to go on record.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air.
Gene Baradelli, back behind Enemy Lines. Joining me online right now, we have a legitimate legend on the phone, a legendary political consultant, a New York Times bestselling author, and without a doubt, I believe the word iconoclast probably best describes him. Roger Stone. Sir, thank you for coming on.
Great to be here. Many thanks.
Yeah, great to have you back again. Last time we talked, we were talking about the Clinton's War on Women book, which was a fantastic success. And you've written another book now, congratulations, all about Donald Trump. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Yeah, I'm very proud of my new book, The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated an American Revolution. Without any question, this is kind of the definitive insider's account of the greatest upset in U.S. political history. And I tried to use the style of the late Theodore H. White, who wrote The Making of the President in 1960. The book is kind of a combination of analysis of big picture trends in the country that allowed for the election of Trump, as well as some, nitty-gritty vignettes from the campaign trail. Gave you a flavor of the campaign. So it's a good read. There's a lot in here you didn't know about this election, but I explained why I think it was possible for Trump to win, why the pollsters were all wrong, the role of the mainstream media in the election, and so on.
Very good. Now, you're credited with kind of pegging Donald Trump to being a future president way before anybody really ever thought of him as even a candidate. What is it that you saw, and when did you see it?
Well, I started thinking about Donald Trump for president as early as 1988. I met him in 1979 when I was working on Governor Ronald Reagan's campaign for president, running the New York State campaign, in addition to several other northeastern states. And I was immediately taken, with his size. I don't mean his physical size, although, he's tall and broad-shouldered like Reagan. He is an imposing figure, but I'm talking about something bigger than that. It's actually greater than charisma. It's kind of a command presence, a stature, if you will. And I'd seen this before. Reagan had it. Nixon had it. Dwight Eisenhower had it. Former Texas Governor John Connally had it. George H.W. Bush never had it. But he had that quality that when he walks into a room, all eyes are on him. When he speaks, all ears are listening to him. So I thought also, from the beginning, because of his wealth, he had an independence that was very important. He was not beholden to any special interest or any special industry or any special pleader. And I think that independence is still why he has the potential to be one of our greatest presidents.
You know what? I just have in the room right now a special co-host of mine, Jerry Gross, another fellow attorney of mine. He's got a question he wants to ask you as well. Go ahead.
Hey, Roger. How are you?
Excellent.
On that same vein, were you ever concerned that perhaps Donald Trump was not necessarily as artful in his eloquence as some of the other individuals you just mentioned?
Look, he's not a career politician, and he has a leadership style and a speaking style and organization style of his own. But I prefer to kind of look at these things historically. They said Andrew Jackson was vulgar, crude, ill-mannered, ignorant, a wild man. He was one of our greatest presidents. They said that Theodore Roosevelt was an egomaniac, a self-promoter, a fraud, a lightweight. he also turned out to be one of our greatest presidents. I don't think you can judge these things by a standard set by a previous president. They've all had their own individual brand and style of leadership. You're right, Donald Trump does not speak in the polished form of a career politician. He talks the way real people talk. He talks the way, Americans talk around the dinner table. He speaks colloquial English. It's not polished. It's not high oratory, but I think it's extremely effective.
And considering we just got finished with a great orator that really did nothing to further the country and President Obama, it seemed like the right time for that as well, Roger, I would think. Now, I just want to transition to one thing that you bring up in your book, which I think a lot of liberals are still hand-wringing over, and that is how the media got Donald Trump all wrong. What is it that did it for him? Was it the advent of social media and the level of interaction that brings now was underestimated? Or was it the bubble effect of mainstream media being in New York, Washington, LA, Chicago, and all these places where they seem to be all talking amongst themselves?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. One of the important themes of the book is that this is the election in which the mainstream media monopoly on the dissemination of political information was finally broken. Prior to this election, the NBCs, the ABCs, the NBCs, the two cable networks really had a monopoly on what we learned and what we heard about the candidates. But because of the technological advance of a majority of Americans now getting their political news on a computer device as opposed to a television set in the living room, you have given rise to the alternative media, meaning when people go to their handheld device for the purpose of watching television, let's say, they very quickly learn that there are much better, more accurate, more objective news outlets than, say, CNN. And therefore they start following alternative media. This gave rise to Trump's candidacy because there was a medium in which he was not interpreted by people who were hostile, and he was able to communicate more directly. Now you add to that his own mastery of Twitter, Facebook, a whole new channel of communications compared to previous presidential campaigns. And I think those things make a Trump victory possible. Couple that with the fact that the pollsters, the media pollsters, most, but not all, but most of the professional pollsters made a fundamental error in assuming that the electorate would be identical to the electorate 4 years ago in terms of turnout, makeup, percentages, and so on. That was probably never realistic. So they based their polling on a false premise that the turnout and makeup of the electorate would be identical to what it was 4 years ago. It was different. There were more white Catholics. There were more rural voters. There were fewer African-American voters, and so on. And those small but significant changes in the electorate are why the polling was wrong. They were polling the wrong people, and also why the election result was such a shocker.
Roger, let me ask you, this is Gerald Gross. Having said that, what effect do you believe polling will have in future elections, particularly presidential elections?
It will continue to have the same effect, meaning polls are interesting. People like to know where the horse race stands. Political junkies like ourselves are addicted to them. But I guess the result of this election is pollsters will be more careful. Pollsters will be more thoughtful about drawing their sample to get a sample that more nearly fits the ultimate electorate. The one pollster out there who did adjust for what he thought would be the turnout, who did see the potential for Trump to win Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, of course, is Tony Fabrizio, Republican pollster, a New Yorker, someone who told me early that the Democratic pollsters, the media pollsters, had it wrong, that their sample makeup was incorrect, and that Trump could win. And then in the end, he told me that he would win. Of course, he was correct.
Absolutely, and it seemed like Trump kind of revolutionized voter targeting based upon those numbers as well. I love talking about all the wonky stuff, but you know what? I got to ask the questions that everybody want me to ask. And that has to do with the news of the day and the investigation into this alleged Russian interference into our elections and how you're getting caught up with it. First, I just want to ask you about the news breaking this week about Devin Nunes recusing himself, and feel you out as to whether that is a good thing or a bad thing for this investigation, in your opinion.
Well, I think it's, look, I like Devin Nunes. I think he's an honest guy. He's not an attorney. He's not a political sophisticate.
Wait, what are you trying to say? You got two attorneys in the room, Roger. Hang on a second.
And now Trey Gowdy, who is an attorney and a former prosecutor, will lead this investigation.
Excellent save.
And also Tom Rooney, who's a fine congressman from my home state of Florida. The important thing is to have the investigation, because what the Democrats now really want is no investigation, because they know they're busted. Let me be as clear as I possibly can. I know of no Russian collusion or influence on the Trump campaign. It is a damnable lie. When the New York Times reports on January 20th that the intelligence services say they have proof, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Let's see the proof. Let's touch the proof. Let's weigh the proof. Evidence. The kind of evidence that would stand up in a court of law. Let's see that evidence. Let me be clear. They have nothing. They have zero. It's a political claim, very cleverly invented by John Podesta, the Clinton campaign manager, to distract from the fact that he and his brother and the Clintons were up Putin's ass, that they made millions on business deals with the clique around Putin. So it distracts from all of that, and it puts the focus on Trump. There is no evidence that I know of Russian collusion. I had no contacts with any representative or stand-in for the Russian state. The claim that my now entirely public and innocuous exchange with Goosefer 2.0 on Twitter constitutes collusion is disproved by the content of the exchange, the timing of the exchange, and the circumstances of the exchange. It's not possible for me to collude with him on a hacking that took place 6 weeks before we communicated. And this is our only communication, unless, of course, I owned a time machine, which I don't.
Well, I'm glad we ruled that out. I
do not concede that Goosefer 2.0 is a Russian asset. Just because the CIA says he is, that doesn't mean it's true. They also said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. They also said that we weren't involved in rendition of trafficking terrorists through third parties, nations that do use torture. They lied about Benghazi and the circumstances surrounding the attack on our facility there. Why would we believe them? They've been wrong about everything for the last 30 years. I go further back. They've been wrong about everything for the last 50 years. Vietnam, Iran-Contra, the Kennedy assassination. Why would anyone believe the deep state? They twist the facts to try to fit a narrative that they prefer. Now, you may ask me, what is their motive? Their motive is really simple. Neocon Hillary Clinton promised them a war in Syria, and damn it, they want it. They want an expansion of the proxy war, including, as she said in the campaign, a no-fly zone, an invitation for World War III. Now, I look at the situation in Syria, and I see Assad propped up by the Russians. They're not our friends. Financing Hamas and Hezbollah, gassing, presumably, children. So he's no friend of ours, nor is he any good. And on the other hand, you have ISIS propped up by the Saudis, who are fighting the families in New York who are trying to collect over the Saudis' role in the murders of 9/11. So they're not our friends. Why would we spend a single borrowed U.S. dollar, because we're so broke now we had to borrow the money for our adventure in Libya, or a single drop of American blood over Syria? But that is what the neocons want. That's what the military-industrial complex wants. That's what Hillary promised them. And now I think they seek to stampede Donald Trump into seeking yet another unjustified foreign war.
Well, Roger, just to focus on you for a second, because I want to take it from another angle now. Given all that's been put out into the media about your alleged interactions from the Democrats, how much are you going to be demanding your day in court to basically, exonerate yourself and put your good name back in order?
I have written to the chairman of both the Senate and the House Intelligence Committees demanding to testify in public. I require no subpoena. I'll be happy to show up voluntarily. And I'm not requesting immunity. I don't need it. Adam Schiff and some jackass congresswoman from California named Spire, and this fellow who's a new congressman from Connecticut, who I believe his name is Himes, I think. They need to understand that congressional immunity for defamation only extends to things they say on the floor. Things they say off the floor are actionable. They have defamed me. I will take their exact words and show where they are false. So I'm anxious to do that as soon as possible. If I am not afforded that opportunity, I will most likely have no choice but litigation. But even congressmen are held responsible for the defamatory things they say.
Absolutely. The last thing I want to touch on, and I'm excited about this because I'm actually going to the Tribeca Film Festival for this, is the release of Get Me Roger Stone, not only at Tribeca, but it's going to be on Netflix. How was this originally pitched to you, and have you seen it, what the final product is?
I have not seen the entire documentary. Like you, I've seen the trailer, which is very intriguing. This has been a 5-year project of a group of young film producers who I agreed to cooperate with. I don't own any piece of this. There's no monetary benefit in it for me. I'm not being paid for the use of my name or likeness or anything like that. And frankly, my expectation is that it'll be entertaining. I don't expect it to be a hit piece, nor do I expect it to be a love letter. My guess is it'll be a pretty balanced piece. I mean, I have cultivated a certain political style. Some people like it. Some people don't like it. That's fine. I do find the level of personal vituperation being generated, through the paid bots and the whack jobs like Brock to be a bit much. You can go on Twitter, you can go on Facebook right now. You'll see people advocating my murder, the murder of my wife, the murder of my dog, the murder of my family, and so on. It does. No human being could be unaffected by that. I've got pretty thick skin, but the left is so intolerant. The left talks a good game, but when you get right down to it, what they're for is censorship. They think anyone who disagrees with them should be barred from the internet. And that's happening even today. You have Google and Facebook censoring the Breitbarts, the Daily Callers, the Infowars.com, Stone Cold Truth. My openings, my retweets, visitors to my sites grew exponentially before the election, continued to grow immediately after the election, and now they have dropped off to very little. That's because of the manipulation of the logarithms by Google and Facebook in flagrant violation of the antitrust laws, and I think that will probably end up being settled either in the Congress or the courts.
Absolutely. I got one last question from Jerry, and then we're going to make sure that everybody goes to Amazon and every other place where finer books are sold to go buy The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated a Revolution. And, of course, we want everybody to go to stonecoldtruth.com and check you out on Twitter at Roger J. Stone Jr. Jerry, you got the last question. I know it's a doozy. Go ahead.
On the recent events, Roger, concerning former NSA head Susan Rice, her contradictions and recent revelations regarding the intelligence and the unmasking of various individuals, including Mike Flynn. How do you feel about the fact that when James Comey recently testified in this congressional investigation, there was no confirmation whatsoever that he was investigating that end of the overall investigation concerning possible illegal unmasking and the weaponizing of intelligence information?
I would say a couple things. One of the reason that the intelligence services and the Democrats and some in the media are so desperate to find or fabricate some link between Trump and the Russians is because that was their legal justification for the spying on the president. And without it, it becomes that the spying on the president or his associates was done for raw political reasons. It is very clear to me that Susan Rice violated the law. I think we will learn more and more. Given her role in Benghazi, she has a reputation as a proven liar. As far as Mr. Comey is concerned, he has no credibility left. He was the prosecutor in the Sandy Berger matter. Remember that? Yep. Berger went into the National Archives, stole documents by shoving them down the front of his pants that showed that Bill Clinton could have killed Osama bin Laden, but he didn't. Berger belonged in a penitentiary. That's a crime. No prosecution was brought by Mr. Comey. Then there's the Mark Rich affair. Remember that? Yep. Mark Rich was an international fugitive from justice. He gave Bill Clinton a multi-million-dollar bribe for the Clinton Foundation through his wife, and he was given a pardon. Bill Clinton should have done time for that. So should have the lawyers who passed the papers and brokered the deal. Mr. Comey was the prosecutor. Nobody was prosecuted. Now, Comey went before the House Intelligence Committee last week and said there was no surveillance of Trump Tower. That's what he said. That's perjury. Why he hasn't been arrested, I do not understand. He has no credibility. He is very evasive in the answers of his questions, but I don't see how, given his track record, anyone can take anything he as serious.
You think there's going to be... Go ahead.
The best way to resolve this would be for the Attorney General to impanel a grand jury and start calling the Obama folks one by one, starting with the big man himself, because the lesson of Watergate is no person is above the law, including Barack Obama. So it's time for him to go before the grand jury. Let's find out what he knew from his national security advisor.
I think that's a great course of action. Roger Stone, you have shaped the course of politics in my lifetime, and I thank you for that. Folks, check out The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated the Revolution, by the legendary iconoclast Roger Stone. If I can only dress like you, Roger, and pull it off the way you do, my life would be complete. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Folks, check out stonecoldtruth.com as well, and Roger Stone on Twitter at Roger J. Stone Jr. Sir, it is an honor to speak with you.
Great to be with you. Many thanks, man.
Hey, folks, I just want to let you know about a great opportunity for listeners of Behind Enemy Lines Radio. If you go to our website, www.behindenemylinesradio.us, and click on the SaneBox ad on the right side of the page, you will get a great opportunity for a discounted offer to join SaneBox. SaneBox filters out all the unimportant email from your inbox so that you can really focus on what matters. If you're anything like me, folks, you get hundreds of pieces of email a day, not many of which is important. SaneBox's smart filter will get everything you need to fly through your inbox and finally make email work for you. It gets rid of spam emails, it deprioritizes emails that aren't as important to you, and it helps you unsubscribe from mailing lists and individual senders with ease. So again, go to www.behindenemylinesradio.us and you click on the SaneBox ad and you'll be given an exclusive offer you won't find anywhere else.
The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
But resist we must. They're all jitty about a shutdown. The tortoise in the race, then co-author of Hubris. U2 lead singer Bono, Fran Drescher, Sigourney Weaver, suspect Jahar Tsarnaev, Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh, the show Rush Lombard hosts Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Is Mike Muckery yesterday, Antonin Scalia, Kim Kardashian, and the Republican candidates, both Cairo and Benghazi. We rank behind Lavita. First stop, Kazakhstan to college students in Beijing. He's getting lunch at Chipotle in Iowa. Bain is appropriate. The GOP's tax day giveaway to millionaires. Why was traffic problems email sent? The Environmental Projection Agency and what sequestration has done.
But wait, there's more.
We all know I've had my share of prompter issues. And here's the president meeting with a cola cube. Republicans, Grinches, launching fistful of coal. Copies of the new issue of Charlie Hebdo. He also goes by the name Michael Zahabilba. 26-year-old Nina. Phone. Ray Romano. Honor David Letterman. He died of accidental asphyxia. Al-Qaeda in Yemen. The start of school has been postponed several times. Massive manhood is underway. Who spoke at a white supremacist convention. You look at the hand you dealt with, there are not 60 Republicans after a historic when you hear of ISIS now waterboating. I'm all over the map on immigration. Did the New England Patriots cheat to get into the big game? NFL analyst and Hall of Fame player Troy Aikens, the writer slamming President Obama for talking with YouTube celebrities. What's the latest tonight in Iowa?
Well, in Ottawa.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show.
Gene Baradelli, back behind enemy lines. I want to thank Jerry Gross for coming on the show and helping with that interview with Roger Stone. Jerry's a great guy. He's a fellow attorney. Been practicing for many, many years. Someone I've come to greatly admire as far as his, not only his legal background, but just being a great guy. I'm glad to be working with him professionally, and you'll hear him probably more on this show. And of course, we also want to thank Roger Stone for giving us so much time and being so generous with his time and his words. It's not a lot of breaking news there, but you really get a feel for Roger Stone, the man, don't you, when you hear his words and how feisty, how blunt force truth he is, and how he will never, ever dodge an issue, a question, anything. And I'm so grateful that he came on the show to talk to us, especially that now that he's a focal point of what's going on with this farce of an investigation into Russian interference in the elections, and of course interference is being used very loosely here. Thank you, Roger, for coming on the show, and I truly mean it when I say that the man shaped politics in my lifetime. From Reagan to Bush to Trump. The man was there for it all. So thank you, Roger, for coming on the show. Folks, we are way past halftime on the show, but we still got to do the plugs. I want to thank everybody for listening. Check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you miss any part of the show that we normally do live on Spreaker, you can check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 FM Adel, Georgia, WLBB 1330 AM in Carrollton, Georgia, all part of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. You can also check us out at KLRN Radio online. Great to have you guys with us as well. High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media. We always love our people from Texas. Thank you for tuning into the show. Also, ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network, and Lanterns Radio. Check them out, folks, at lanterns.buzz, one of the fastest growing internet radio networks out there. You'll be glad you did. But if you missed any part of the rebroadcasts that air at various times during the week, you can also check us out as a podcast. We're available on Spreaker, iTunes, Player FM, Podbay, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, which is absolutely amazing that we're on there. You can discover us on Google Play Music and, of course, on SoundCloud. And also shout out to one of our newest podcast outlets, I should say, Auto Radio, part of Sirius XM's beta for podcasting. Check us out on there as well. They're brand new. And you might find some other shows on there you like as well. Folks, we're going to be wrapping up the show a little bit. I want to get to some domestic stuff here, of course. Of course, as an attorney, I couldn't be happier to see Neil Gorsuch confirmed as our newest Associate Justice to the Supreme Court of the United States. What an honor and what a great selection. It's a shame it had to come to that nuclear option, though, that we talked about on the show. The killing of the filibuster for Supreme Court judicial nominees. It was coming, folks. November 21st, 2013 is a date I want you all to remember. Because that's the day that Harry Reid decided to first use the nuclear option, the so-called nuclear option, on other nominees that were up for the Trump administration that were being filibustered by the Republicans. Once that rubric was crossed, once that Rubicon was crossed, there was no turning back. This was inevitable, that for Supreme Court judicial nominees, you were going to see a up and down vote by a straight majority. And this is why elections matter, folks. The arrogance and hubris of Democrats in thinking that they could use this option and then criticize Republicans for doing the same thing, absolutely ludicrous. I'm having even trouble putting my words together, as you can hear, just by even discussing this. To me, folks, this was a no-brainer by Mitch McConnell. And I know we like to have fun with Mitch McConnell and wonder where he's been or anything, but man, oh man, kudos to the Senate Republicans for actually showing some huevos. They finally said, we're the majority. We're going to start acting like a majority. You're the minority, and you need to start acting like a minority. You can try to make deals, but your out-and-out opposition based on partisanship and not based on substance has to stop. Neil Gorsuch was one of the most qualified jurists in the nation. Hands down. I'm tired of hearing about the stolen seat nonsense about Merrick Garland. Go back to 1992 and look what former chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate and eventual Vice President Joe Biden said about nominations done during an election cycle. You'll be very surprised to hear that many of those arguments were the arguments used by Republicans in stopping Merrick Garland's nomination in trying to steal a seat, in my opinion. There was no stolen seat here. People voted. I know this for a fact because I'm one of those people. People voted for President of the United States in 2016 based upon who was going to be selecting Supreme Court justices for the next 4 and possibly 8 years. I did not want to see a liberal Supreme Court for the next generation, for the next 20 years. Didn't want to see it. That's why I voted for Donald Trump. I am not ashamed to say that was my primary reason for voting for Donald Trump. That being said, every other argument you hear about Neil Gorsuch was just, bunk. And I want to use a stronger word on the radio, but, FCC and all that. Let's be honest. The man was in the majority for a decade in his circuit. 2,700 decisions, 97% of the time, he was with the majority. The man was a brilliant writer, a brilliant jurist. His philosophy on the law and government and the separation of powers is what you need on the highest court in the land. And frankly, his pedigree and education should be beyond reproach. They brought up this last-minute thing about plagiarism in a paper he wrote back in the 80s. And even the author, who people were claiming was plagiarized, was saying, nah, it's not so bad. It's not plagiarism. Especially when you're writing about facts of a case, and you can't really rephrase and reframe facts to avoid plagiarism, quote unquote, according to this author. So you know what? There you go. Another case of there you go. Neil Gorsuch, a great pick. Final thought time here on the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show. Next week, got another great show coming up. You know what? I got to get back to this whole missile attack. And I got to be honest, for me, it feels like Donald Trump did the right thing here. Obviously, it had to be a gut-wrenching decision. You know what? We're dealing with sick people in the world, evil tyrants like Assad. The Donald Trump administration, they sent a message that we need to hold people accountable. We cannot stand idly by and let evil go forth in the world and kill innocents. That's what it comes down to. And if you don't believe that it is our place in the world to call out evil and be a check against evil, I'm not just talking about, political expediency or political opportunity. I'm talking about evil in the world. Certain things are black and white, folks. Using chemical weapons against your own people, there's no gray area about it. If that doesn't deserve a response, nothing will. We were lied to by the previous administration, or they were just so incompetent that they actually believed that Syria eliminated their chemical weapons program. What does this mean for us for the nuclear program with Iran? What does this mean for us with a check against North Korea? So many things that we need to find the answer to about this previous administration. But until we get those answers, we are left groping in the dark, and our leader, Donald Trump, is going to be bringing some sunshine around the world. And we're not going to allow human rights violations, murder, enslavement, torture. We're not going to let these things happen anymore. The sheriff is back. Look out, world. Here comes America again. That's my final thought for the show. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. I want to thank Roger Stone for coming on the show. I want to thank Jerry Gross for helping me out with that interview. Man, did he do a great job. Looking forward to doing more interviews at the office with him. And, of course, Russ is going to be back very soon. The internet situation will be fixing itself within the next 2 weeks, folks. Russ will be back very soon. Russ, we miss you. We love you. We want you back on the show as soon as possible, brother. But until then, it's time to shut this sucker down. From the People's Republic of New York, folks, this is Behind Enemy Lines, Gene Baradelli saying good night, God bless, and we are out of here. Good night, folks.
Our position has been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A Rock Radio production. Back in 7 days. Out.